Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show.
Hi, my name is Wendy Reinhardt-Kapzak, registered dietitian and CEO of the Produce for Better Health Foundation. You might remember me from the podcast episodes 52 and 116. Today, I'm inviting you all to have a plant. Fruits and vegetables are food rooted in a better mood, and there can be immense joy in the entire journey of eating fruits and vegetables, from selecting them at farmers markets or the grocery store and preparing them in your home kitchen. Our research at the Produce for Better Health Foundation indicates that eating more fruits and vegetables can lift your spirits. Join me today and every day, and remember to have a plant. And enjoy today's episode of the Produce Moms Podcast. To learn more about the Produce for Better Health Foundation, please visit fruitsandveggies.org.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Produce Moms Podcast, and my name is Lori Taylor. And as you know, I absolutely love hosting this show, coming at you all week after week with some amazing stories from agriculture and spotlighting people who are just making it happen for us all. And so today we have an incredible guest, a fourth generation family farmer, Brett Balakoff. His family has been farming in the Yakima Valley, which is one of the most famous agriculture regions in the United States. It's located in eastern Washington. They have been farming in the Yakima Valley for over 100 years. And Brett serves as the president of Valicoff Fruit. They are part owners of Sage Fruit Company. So certainly if you follow along with what we do at the Produce Moms, you know that we work with Sage Fruit. That's the brand that you will find at grocery retail on your apple bags, stickers, pears, cherries. So this is going to be a great episode. We're going to talk to Brett about, from the grower's point of view, how we actually get this fruit from the orchard to the grocery store. And beyond that, I mean, we have to absolutely tap into some storytelling about this rich family heritage in American agriculture. So with that, Brett, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. Very happy to be here.
Thank you. So please tell us all a little bit more about yourself and what you do to support the family business.
Yeah, so I am, as you mentioned, currently fourth generation farmer for the Balakoff family. My great grandfather immigrated to the United States from Bulgaria, came into Ellis Island, ended up working the railroad all the way across the country, and decided to set up shop in Yakima. And from there, the rest is kind of history. So,
wow. Yeah. What a great story. So help folks understand, for people who aren't familiar with Yakima Valley, let's kind of paint the picture of what it is. I mean, it is, it cannot be, it's like, I can't say it enough, what a famous and important ag region this is, but I'd love for you to explain that to our listeners.
Yeah, of course. The Yakima Valley is very unique. It is actually a high desert, which is kind of counterintuitive to the whole farming thing. All of our water, let me say most of our water, comes from the annual snowfall. We get the watershed from the mountains, and then that's, typically piped through different irrigation canals, and that's how we irrigate all of our crops. So it's pretty cool just looking at that sustainability model and using what the earth gives us. The ground here, the dirt, so to speak, is just extremely fertile, very good for growing. I think a lot of that dates back to Ice Age, as we're kind of in these deep valleys, you can imagine all the nutrients and stuff kind of settling down into those low portions. And everything grows extremely well here, whether it's tree fruits, vegetables. Hops, we're pretty well known for hops around here.
Like world renowned for hops. Yes.
Yeah,
and your apples. I mean, for sure. The apples from Yakima Valley are world renowned as well, but it's really amazing. You were saying that was it your grandmother or your great grandmother that did hops for a while and then kind of got out of it?
Yeah, it would have been my grandma's family. They were Demarets, which were the French Canadians, and they were in hops. And then we kind of got away from that as a family, but definitely has a lot of long, rich history here in the Valley.
Yeah. And so for those of you that enjoy beer, or hey, if you enjoy wine, there's a lot of wine grapes there too.
There definitely are.
It's really a special place. It's gorgeous. And to Brett's point, literally everything seems to thrive there that you put in that fertile soil. So thanks for explaining that. And we're talking from a geographical standpoint, folks, we're talking Eastern Washington. So that's where the location is here. So Brett, tell us a little bit more about Valicoff Fruit Company. I mean, super cool that your great grandfather came from Ellis Island, got a job with the railroads, and then settled in Yakima.
Yeah, no. So Balakoff Fruit, my great grandpa, set up shop here. He actually started more on the vegetable side. Had a little, kind of farmer's market-esque type deal. He was actually pretty well known for his pickle recipe, and that's really how it all got started. Not the most sexy story, so to speak, but it is pretty cool looking back. And really my grandpa was the one that got more involved in the tree fruit aspect. I know he started mostly with pears and then branched off to apples. And then my dad and uncle were really the ones that took, a fairly modest sized farm and grew it pretty substantially during their tenure at the reins. And so very fortunate to be set up with a pretty good foundation and base, and to keep that, family heritage and history going forward. And my goal is just to kind of leave it better when I'm done than when I arrived. So we'll see if that happens or not.
Oh, that's a great mindset. And it reminds me of a mindset that it's kind of the common thread that connects all of the farmers that we've been blessed to get to know here at the Produce Moms. Everyone's committed to that sustainability. Let's make sure that from the operation to the soil, everything, they want to make sure that they're leaving it better than how they found it. So I know from our pre-show conversations, Brett, which I must say, I know that I digress a little bit here off of the flow we discussed, but you mentioned it was pickles that kind of made the family a little famous, but aren't Bulgarian pickles, isn't that an iconic region for pickles, or am I making that up?
I think it is. I know pickles, and then, and this goes back a few generations, but I feel like at family gatherings, we always used to have these pickled peppers that my parents liked. I was too young, and, I kind of tried them a few times and was like, they're okay. Not my favorites. But yeah, I think very well known for that type of food. So
yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Well, now that we've settled that, hey, food is culture. Don't you love these stories, folks, that come out, and one day, 100 years from now, someone in your family is going to be talking about your crazy pickle recipe too. Okay. So anyway, Brett, let's talk about, I know from our pre-show conversations that your company is vertically integrated. So help people understand what that means. How does that position you as a stakeholder in the food supply system?
Yeah, so farming, and it is pretty tough. You want to diversify yourself as much as possible. At different times, one commodity might be doing exceptionally well and generating a good return that you can invest back in the business. And other times a commodity might not be performing well. So vertically integrated, really all that means is we are farming our own land, growing different commodities. We do more than just apples. We're diversified there with apples, pears, apricots, peaches, nectarines, some cherries. And so not only are we growing them, we also own and operate a storage and packing facility. So we're bringing the fruit in that we grow along with outside growers that, aren't affiliated, but they trust us to handle their fruit, pack it, and, get the best return for them that we can. Mm-hmm. And then we are part owner, as you mentioned, in Sage, which is the sales and marketing arm of the operation. So, Sage will send over the orders. We're then loading trucks, shipping that product out. So being involved in the growing, the storing, the packing, and the sales and marketing, that's that vertical integration from a business standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, that partnership with Sage Fruit allows the Valicoff family to stay focused on what you've been doing for over 100 years, farming, and the vertical integration process of that versus getting, what Sage Fruit's been doing for decades of the marketing, the sales, drumming up all those relationships with grocery retailers, et cetera. So that I believe is a perfect marriage, so to say. It's a great way to for folks to understand too what it takes to get that sage apple into your home kitchen, or pear or cherry. There's a lot of different hands in that operation. So thank you, Brett, for explaining what you all do at Balakoff. Let's talk about the apple growing process. I'm certain that with your role in a family that's been farming for this many years, you didn't just start at the president level. I'm sure you've had plenty of jobs in the orchards and in the packing house and everywhere else. So I want to talk to you about the apple growing process.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely correct there. I think my first job was when I was either 7 or 8. And my job was to go out and prune and train baby trees. And that was me and my sisters. I've got 3 sisters. We did that for a summer, at least, a handful of weeks there. And then, I spent a good portion of time down at the warehouse doing receiving during the summer months. So that definitely helped. The apple growing side and really tree fruit in general is pretty unique, I would say, compared to other ag. You've got row crops where you have the ability to turn those. If something's not making money, you don't plant corn this year, you might plant a potato or something, and you can really react to the market and plant follow the money and plant what's making money. Tree fruit is completely different. First off, it takes like 2 years from the time you order a tree to that tree being grafted to the variety you want and ready to plant. And then after that, you've got probably another anywhere from 2 to 4 years to grow that tree, train it to the growing method you want, and start picking it. And you've probably got a total of, 5 to 7 years until you hit kind of your maximum yield or a high enough yield where it makes sense. So yeah, it's definitely more of a long-term game versus just being able.
It sounds like by the time you decide, I want to plant this tree, you've got, between the 2 years you said for grafting, and then the, sometimes 4 years until there's fruit, 5 years till it's at maximum volume. You're talking 7 years before you as the grower, you're getting the, a standard return, so to say.
Yep. No. So it is very front heavy on capital outlay. And sure. I think the hardest part too is just trying to look into the future and say, what is consumer X going to be demanding 7 years from now. And that's easily the hardest part.
Yeah. Cause if you graft these trees into a variety that, has lost its consumer appeal or interest, you've got, 7 years before you're going to be making money back on that tree. And, my goodness. Yeah, that's wild. So why don't we explain to folks what grafting even means? I know because I've visited Valicoff Fruit Company, and I've been to Yakima Valley with Sage Fruit Company a handful of times. So, but Brett, you're going to be able to explain this better than I can. So please explain to people what you mean when you say grafting and why that 2-year runway.
Yeah. So grafting is just how we propagate the different varieties. So each tree is actually just a rootstock, which is a different type of tree, and that can be different based on overall shape. I mean, not dissimilar to what most individuals have in their garden, or in their landscape. One tree might grow to be 40 feet tall, and the other tree might grow to be, 5 feet tall on a Japanese maple or something. So you have all these different rootstocks, and then you grow that rootstock for a year. It's got to be big enough to be able to graft. And what we'll do is over the winter months, when all the leaves are off of the existing apple trees, we'll go out and cut a limb off. We call that a scion, SCION, piece of scion wood. And on that stick of wood, there might be 25 to 30 buds. The buds are just where the leaves come out, where other branches, so on and so forth. So you grow the rootstock for a year. And then that following spring, you'll actually take that scion wood, and all they do is put a notch in the root, and then they'll cut the bud off of that, call it twig that you cut off the tree.
Yeah. They
will insert that into the notch and then tape it shut, basically to keep all the air out. And what that allows is for the sap to flow between those two, and it'll actually grow together. And then you cut the rootstock above that bud union, and all of the sap and really power behind the tree will go up through the bud. It will push that bud out, and you now have a perfect clone of whatever variety you used for that scion wood.
Isn't that unreal? I mean, it is just absolutely wild that happens. But when I saw it for the first time with my own eyes, I was like, this looks like such a primitive way to change over an entire orchard's variety of apples. But it works. And I know it's not primitive, but it just seems simple. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. I always like to think of it. I'm kind of a nerd, and I like Star Wars, the Clone Wars and all that stuff. Yes. I always just think of all these little apple trees just getting essentially cloned, and having these massive little apple tree clone armies. So,
well, and I think really too, this is a great way to paint the picture for folks how, there is consumer, I mean, dare I say it, even a level of fatigue when it's apple season and you've got, 20 plus varieties of apples that are greeting you in the produce department. And there's, a small amount of those legacy style varieties that pretty much everyone knows, what a Gala, a Fuji, Honeycrisp, et cetera. They all know those. But then you get into these proprietary varieties that growers are doing. And I think people get a little lost. And, we're hoping that we can help elevate your knowledge, of course, here at the Produce Moms. But I think the most important thing for our listeners that I'd like you to take away as Brett's explaining this grafting process, nothing's more natural than this. I mean, this is a tried and true method that, my goodness, like it's an old fashioned, but it is the way. Like there is nothing, they literally take a little knife, do a notch in the tree, put the grafted bud in there and then tape it up. I mean, it's amazing when I saw it with my own eyes. And that's one thing that we get a lot of questions about here, Brett. When people find these new apple varieties, they assume that they're a result of genetic engineering or other things. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, this is a very natural, historically proven, I said primitive, which probably isn't the right terminology, but this is the way it's been done. Probably, I mean, dare I say it, since you all started farming.
Yeah, it's the exact same way. And yeah, primitive, yes, but it's kind of one of those things I view, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's
back to nature, like back to basics.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other better ways for us to probably describe this, but what I want people to understand is this is about as natural as it gets. We're just letting the trees do their thing, the least amount of human interference. And the human interference that occurs is minimal. Like, it's literally, you're just putting a branch into another piece of the tree and then wrapping it up. That's what it is.
Yep. Very natural. So
yep, it's very great. So thank you so much for explaining that. So I mentioned all these varieties that are going to be greeting people soon at the produce department in Apples. How many varieties of apples are grown at Valicoff Fruit Company?
I think we're right around that 12, maybe 13 different varieties.
Wow. Yeah. And do you have options to expand and add more, like, all the time? Or are you pretty set with what you're doing? Are you thinking about streamlining it?
No, I mean, we're always looking for another opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be foolish not to. And it's just trying to find, again, what's that consumer going to demand here 7 years from now. So.
Right. Anything you're growing right now that you're personally really excited about or passionate about?
No, the Cosmic Crisp is one that is,
I love that,
interesting and unique, just given its history. And yeah, I was going to say, are your listeners familiar with kind of the timeline that those new varieties go through to?
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, we've discussed it before, but we haven't talked about it yet in this episode. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. A lot of these varieties are taking probably 3 decades to come to fruition on a commercial scale. When they're making these new varieties, really a lot of it's done through cross-pollination. So they'll take, say, a gala tree, right? And they'll have that gala flower on the gala tree, and they'll introduce, say, pollen from a Honeycrisp tree onto that gala blossom. And as those two mix, it'll produce a gala apple, but the seeds inside will be a cross of those two parents. So the breeders will then plant those seeds, grow that tree, and see what the result comes out to be. And you can do that same combination, very similar to having your kids. It's you and your husband, Lori. You have kids, and they turn out very different from one another between the two, even though you have the same 50-50 split. So a lot of times they'll breed, those same combinations, plant all those seeds, and maybe come up with 50 or 60 different looking apples, different tasting apples. And then from there, they'll hone that down into, okay, here's the best 2. They'll plant, maybe 10 trees of each. All right, these ones made it, these ones didn't. All right, how does that work for commercial? And the entire process is very time consuming and extremely tricky. So when looking for that next, latest, greatest thing, it's not as easy as just saying, yeah, I want, that brand new Corvette. It's saying, hey, this apple tastes good. It looks good, but is that consumer going to understand that and see that on the shelf? I tend to agree with you. I don't think our industry does a great job of call it educating the consumer. I think we have a lot of really good varieties that kind of play on those old staples that you mentioned with, call it flavor or texture, and make it a little bit better, but people just don't know. And a lot of them look very similar. If I wasn't in the apple industry, I wouldn't be able to tell a lot of them apart. And even being in the apple industry, there's times that in the produce aisle where I'm looking and it's like, I have never seen that. I don't really know what that apple is. So I can only imagine somebody that isn't well versed, and I would be overwhelmed as all get up.
Yep. And I completely agree with you, which is why we're, boots in the dirt every day here at TPM, focus on that consumer education angle. Thankfully, the consumer, the shopper has never been more connected, and a quick web search can certainly, we're seeing more people embrace technology as it relates to grocery shopping, whether it's, searching for that intel when you are actively in the grocery store or shopping online. And sometimes those strategies can help you get an understanding of the varieties. But, Brett's right. There's a lot of work to be done. I've attended a lot of those meetings with US Apple and Sage Fruit. And we definitely have a lot of work to do, because there are some great tasting apples that consumers are just they're not pulling them off the shelf with the volume and velocity we need them to just yet. So, but we're working on it. Brett, do you have a favorite variety?
That's a hard one. I would say Pink Lady. I just really like that.
That's a great apple. Flavor. Yeah.
And they're just seem to be consistently good. Honeycrisp is always a fan favorite. I do like a good fresh Honeycrisp. But yeah, those two would probably be the ones that I go to more often than not.
I love that. Well, this has been a great episode. And Brett, you'll get the final word and the last goodbye to our audience. But before I turn it over to you for that goodbye, I want to make sure that everyone knows you can look for Sage Fruit content on theproducemoms.com. And of course, you can connect with Sage Fruit online, sagefruit.com. And Valicoff Fruit, long-standing partner with Sage, great grower. Brett, to your point, you grow all the tree fruit, apples, pears, cherries, and oh my goodness, I have really enjoyed learning more about you and your family and this rich heritage that you all have in the Yakima Valley. So thank you for sharing your story with us today and for being our guest on the Produce Moms podcast. And so with that, I invite you for any closing remarks and final words that you might have.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, Lori. Really appreciate everything that you do on the Produce Moms web page and really helping to educate everybody. So keep eating those apples and cheers to another good year.
Hey everyone, this is Helena Fox, podcast director for the Produce Moms podcast. Lori and new amazing guests will be back with new episodes starting Wednesday, August 3rd. We're taking a small but much needed summer break. Thank you to the Produce Moms podcast production and content team who makes our weekly shows possible. As you know, we always appreciate ratings and reviews of our show, so please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Without you, it isn't possible, and we thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.